Hi YouTube, today I'm going to be talking about Lilith in the 8th house. So the 8th house is associated with the sign of Scorpio, and it's the house of death, rebirth, and transformation, along with ownership, like shared ownership. It's with inheritances and taxes, and basically just shared property as well, life after death. It deals with the darker sides of the human psyche. Now Lilith is a point in the orbit's moon, and it's not necessarily like a solid constellation, it's not a planet, and it's not an asteroid. It's just a point in the moon's orbit. Now Lilith energy, I like to compare it to the female version of Pluto, but just a little bit more intense, because whereas Pluto is more obvious, I feel like Lilith embodies more female characteristics, which are more seductive and secretive than the masculine energy would be. When I refer to feminine masculine energies, I'm just referring to feminine, masculine, not necessarily gender or sex. So when you have Lilith, which is said to be this energy that's the shadow side of a human person, and the shadow side of someone is the really deep repressed memories or ideas or desires. It's something that's extremely repressed in the subconscious mind. And when it's in the 8th house, usually those repressions of things that deal with the 8th house, so of sex and death and even ownership, they can be a little bit more repressed, which means they fall into your shadow side, which means they are things that you feel a certain shame or guilt about. This can go anywhere from having a darker sexuality, being afraid of sex, or using manipulating to get a certain way in bed, to gain power using sex. It can also include dark fantasies of sex that they would never share with anybody else. I'm talking about even the nitty-gritty, uncomfortable stuff, which is why it's to the shadow stuff. So sexual themes of like rape, or of just being abused, or any of that kind of graphic taboo stuff that is in regards to sex, is kind of something that they keep in their head. And this becomes repressed because they usually do not express it to their partners or outwardly. They have a very secretive sexuality, and it's not always going to be to those extremes where it's a little bit more on the perverted side of things, but it also could be more just like they like rough sex and stuff like that. I'm sorry, this is kind of uncomfortable for me to talk about, but it can either be on both sides of the spectrum. But there's something about their sexuality that's a little bit different, and something that they prefer to keep private, or they can be very outwardly with it, or some of them can have a repressed sexuality. Those repressed things, whether it's repressed sadness, repressed sexual desires, repressed ideas to control, they're very good at wanting to control something. They can control you, they can steal, especially when they're young, because these tendencies are kind of like on autopilot. So they can steal, they can lie, they can cheat, they manipulate, they can be very good pathological liars. Or they just are very good at lying when the time is necessary. Now I want you guys to keep this in mind, that you can always outgrow certain placements. So let's say that this is your placement, but you've come to a place in your life where you've dealt with all your issues and things that have been buried, then this is definitely something that you can move past. But it's also a really great quality to embody as well if you do have it, because it creates a mystical, kind of magical aura around you. It can be quite intimidating, and it can be quite powerful. If you are a female, the Lilith in your chart kind of shows where you cultivate your feminine power the most. So this can be in areas of the occult, of sex, of death, of ownership and taxes as well. There can be kind of like a really good luck with inheriting things, good luck with gaining other people's materials, good luck with kind of being the upper hand in a business partnership. Stuff like that is where the women's power cultivates the strongest. This can lead her to be a very good feminine, like the female female like power, in a sense, if that makes sense. The female fatale, something like that, that's very magnetic. You can also scare people away with this. And I'm sorry if I keep saying or like, I keep kind of getting mind blocks. Now, growing up, there can always be a feeling of being left out and being kind of a loner, keep being more private. There's always this side to you that's a little bit more kept to yourself, and people can see that, and that's kind of what adds to that mystical aura and that quiet essence. There can also be not necessarily just a quiet reserved essence that's a little bit mysterious, but some of these people like to express how they feel, to purposely intimidate others, or it's kind of they wear fashion a certain way, whether it's to kind of make a statement. And when they do this, it actually intensifies their aura. They wear certain clothing and their makeup in a certain way to allure people, but yet keep people away from them. So whatever they dress, whatever their demeanor is, or however they carry themselves, they prefer to do it so that you are magnetically attracted to them, but you're too scared to kind of come up to them. You're too intimidated. That creates kind of a power control in their eyes. They see that they kind of lured you in, but you can't approach them. They can only approach you. So that's kind of something really cool. They have an energy that they can kind of manipulate to get what they want just by their appearance, especially the females. They can seem very closed off. They can. And I like to think of this, if there's any 8th house or kind of scorpionic placement that is the most intense, I would kind of say it's this one. Because their power to tap into their repressed shadow side is very, very strong, and they literally can transform themselves. So if you're a Lilith in the 8th house, those kind of secret taboo things or pain or anger that you kind of have deeply rooted within yourself, that you don't kind of admit to yourself, not even out loud, because you're too ashamed to, those kind of block your energy pathways in your body. And once you kind of confront them, at least admit it to yourself, if it's something that you feel shame or guilt or anger or sadness about, or jealousy, any of those negative feelings that you feel when you think about a certain thing, or after you do something, you feel that guilt or that shame or that embarrassment. And we're talking about things that you wouldn't even tell to anybody else. That's your shadow side. Okay, that's the side that's repressed when it's Lilith in the 8th house. Because Lilith wants to be expressed in these things of the 8th house that are of taboo to society. Okay, we grow up in a world that teaches us yes, no, wrong, right, all of this stuff. So the Lilith in 8th house person kind of grows up suppressing their true desires, whether it's sexual, whether it's monetary, and whether it's their views of death and their views of their darker emotions, their multifaceted personality. They kind of know how they learn to push it back, push it back, push it back. Lilith wants to express these. This is where Lilith and her shadow side come up. You know what I mean? And so when they're repressed, they get held back here. They create blockages. So if you're trying to kind of release a lot of tension that you have due to shame, guilt, envy, jealousy, all of those things, especially if you feel them towards females or family members or past partners or people like that, anybody really, it's important to kind of say it to yourself, even if it's embarrassing or shameful to say out loud. That will kind of clear up some blockages so that you can grow if you feel that you're in this stagnation and every time you think of something you want it to shut up. When you get those thoughts and you're just like, oh, I don't want to think about this, I don't want to think about this, those are the thoughts that are your shadow side, things that you don't even want to show to yourself. There can be this like kind of different personality when you're by yourself, and they're very good at putting this facade up that's like, yeah, I'm I'm me, yeah, I'm sweet, I don't care, nothing bothers me, like I'm not jealous, I'm not envious, I want the best for you. Like they're very good at doing that like whole kind of act. And then when they're by themselves, they can get a little bit like raw and real, and it's kind of like it's crazy. There's two sides to it and you would never know about them. That's why they understand the human psychology so well. They're kind of natural psychologists because they understand their dark side. Some of them haven't necessarily admitted it to themselves, so they haven't healed, and therefore you're able to heal other people. When you conquer your dark side, you admit it to yourself, you heal from it, then you can help other people struggling through those things as well, because there can be trauma and abuse with this aspect. But when they're suppressed, they kind of just know people's dark side without like really having the ability to heal others because they haven't healed their shadow side yet. And when you don't heal and when you suppress more, uh, it's expressed as rage. These people can have this extreme rage, and pain translates to rage. Sadness translates into rage. Like repressed feelings come out as rage. Things that make you angry, whoever you are, if you're watching this, and this is kind of what you need to know. Whatever makes you angry, whoever makes you angry, you need to ask yourself, why is this making me angry? And who's making me angry? And why does this person make me angry? You know what I mean? There can be some repressed feelings that you have towards that person, you know, stuff like that. Even if it's like you can see some like anger issues with these people, but with Lilith being here, it's extremely private rage, internal rage. They can get so angry in their head that they're even thinking about doing really bad things to you, because that's just how their brain works. When it's all repressed, we're talking about extremes of sexual desires, extremes of monetary desires, property desires, extremes of owning someone or owning something, and extreme feelings of rage. And they suppress that because if they were to unleash it, you would probably look at them like they were crazy and needed to be in a mental hospital. A whole nother person comes out. All of these repressed shadow sides that they hide within themselves have almost like different personalities, and certain situations will bring them up. They may feel as if they're multifaceted and that they have multiple personalities and that they are bipolar or whatever. They can self-diagnose themselves because at a young age they kind of understand that there's something wrong with them, or they'll feel like there's something that their childhood caused them to be this way. You know, they're really good at looking at the past and trying to understand it. But when they tap into that energy and they kind of release everything that they've been suppressed, you'll be able to understand that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. The way that you were brought up kind of made you feel and taught you to believe that the things you wanted were bad. So as time goes on, the things that you want become a little bit more intense, therefore making what you think of that, whatever you want, that desire, whatever you think of that as, it's like amplified, or it's naughtier, or it's kind of just like more disturbing to you, stuff like that. This is kind of more of a darker themed aspect, and I'm sorry, but I like to be honest in my videos, and if you don't relate to it, that's okay. You just don't relate to it and you might have moved on from it. But just keep in mind that the shadow side plays a huge aspect in this 8th house. But along with all of those kind of things, there's also a very high sex drive that they themselves at a young age might have discovered, and that could be due to an encounter that they had where someone sexualized them at a young age, or they just might have like come across really inappropriate stuff at a young age, whether that's porn, whether that's watching, I know this sounds like weird, but either watching your parents get like changed or something like that, or looking at things that they probably shouldn't have. That's kind of where like their sexuality could have started, or they could have just been in tune with their sexuality at a young age and developed sexually younger. It doesn't necessarily always have to be bad, but I do like to tap into the more negative aspects, so please don't get offended. I believe that like it is kind of what it is, and there's no good and bad, because a lot of power comes from this placement as well. When you're so in tune with yourself, once you tap into all of your shadow sides, and a good way to do this, I'll get back to that. Let me make sure I know where I am. A good way to tap into your shadow side is by looking at the people around you in your life that you secretly kind of hate or that secretly piss you off. Okay, that friend that you hang out with, that every time you hang out with her or him, and you're just happy it's over and you're just like, oh my god, that bitch is so fucking annoying, or that dude's so annoying, like, ugh, like, I'm so glad I'm there. But then when you talk to them, you're like, oh, hi, like, what's up? Yeah, we should definitely hang. People like that, or people that you're secretly envious of, or and these close people that kind of make you feel this type of way, but when you talk to their face, it's totally normal. Those people are, and those things that you hate about them are reflections of yourself that you're not admitting to yourself. Welcome to your shadow side. That's what it is. I'm going to make a whole video on shadow sides so you'll be able to understand it, but I figured with the 8th house, it kind of plays a little bit more. The people that you have a certain anger or a negative feeling towards, those are the people that are kind of reflecting or bringing out those things that you don't like about yourself. Once you kind of admit it to yourself, which is kind of hard because there's a lot of pride and ego that comes with this, but it's also how they gain a lot of respect. They carry themselves very stern, very sure of themselves, very determined. They're hard workers when they want something, and their energy kind of just gives them this, like, I'm strong and confident energy to them. So they're not really good at admitting their vulnerability, although they are extremely vulnerable people. Because they have this kind of darker side that they keep to themselves, if anybody would find out about that, that's really vulnerable. You know what I mean? They have a secret. They hold on to a secret, something that they're not truly 100% proud of themselves. They hold on to that. You know what I mean? And if anyone were to find that out, it's kind of like a part of them that they've kept a secret for so long has been revealed. That's vulnerability. They fear being found out. They fear someone knowing who they truly are. And it's not even just their desire. It's just they fear someone finding out who they truly are, because throughout their life, they've learned to kind of the psyche here and the unconscious mind and are taboo when Lilith is here. So that kind of makes unconscious, subconscious mind is kind of who a person truly is, along with their interests, dislikes, hobbies, stuff like that. But when it's there and your subconscious or unconscious mind or desires and thoughts and personality are sought by society to be incorrect or wrong or something that should be suppressed, these people have been hiding their entire lives, you know? So they kind of grow up putting on a face that they think that everybody wants to see. And the only time they get to express it is when they're by themselves. And that's when they feel comfortable doing so, you know? But you'll find that the more that you're honest with yourself, the more you'll be less vulnerable, because you'll become more confident in who you are, and you'll feel like you have more control over your desires when you admit them to yourself or admit that side of your personality, stuff like that. And you'll find that your anger reduces. You'll find that your shame and your guilt reduces. And when you get rid of those blockages, you'll find that you'll start to flow a little bit better with your life purpose and your alignment and what you want in life, because this energy also creates a really good manifester, a really good psychic, a really good occultist, a really good leader, a really good medium, someone that can really communicate very well with not only their deepest desires and manifest that into their life, but also manifest anything else and people and situations. And they're really good at healing themselves once they've admitted everything to themselves. Let's see. What else? Oh, they're not only good at kind of probing at their own mind and seeing the truth about themselves, but they're very, very good at seeing the undercurrents of the human psychology and the human emotional responses, because they create this double persona, or this person that's able to act a certain way when they really feel a completely different way. They can read other people's ones really well. They can read other people's emotional responses. They can understand why they're responding that way. They can understand how that person truly feels. It makes them very good light workers and empaths, but they kind of have to start to shed the stuff that they've hidden from themselves first. Yeah, and they can grow up feeling deeply misunderstood because of the way that they view life, the way they view themselves, and just the way they view things in general. They're different than other people. They see things different. They're okay with things that normal people are not okay with. The things that society says are not good, they are like, okay, yeah, that's normal, that's fine, I understand that. People are like that, you know. Why do you have to like pretend that it doesn't exist? Why do you have to hide it? You know what I mean? But they understand that. They still hide it though, and that makes them feel deeply misunderstood. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Social medias are down below, and I'm currently not doing any readings just because it's a lot to handle right now. Anyways, bye guys.